afternoon, friends, and thank you very much for being here. I see that it's a full house today. You are aware this focus of today's media interaction is the Prime Minister's forthcoming visit to France, Germany, and Canada. I have here with me Foreign Secretary. Along with him are Special Secretary Americas and Joint Secretary Americas. What we will do is I'll request Foreign Secretary to lay out a few opening remarks, following which Special Secretary Americas will deal with the matter relating to Canada, after which we will open the floor for questions. So with those initial remarks, I request Foreign Secretary to begin the proceedings. Foreign Secretary.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister would be traveling to France, Germany, and Canada in that order beginning tomorrow. And if I were to pick a common theme for these destinations, I think you would all appreciate these three countries are all G7 countries. They are industrialized democracies. We have a considerable economic interest in partnering with these countries. They are very relevant to a lot of our national development programs. They're all democratic countries as well, so in that sense we have a larger political convergence with them. With each of these countries, the Prime Minister's program is devised in a way in which the outcomes are most relevant, the messages are most effective, and what I'd like to do is to walk you down the program for France and Germany. Then my colleague, Mr. Swaminathan, would do the same for Canada, and then perhaps we could briefly discuss the issues which would be taken up during the visit and take it on from there. So as I said, the Prime Minister would be leaving tomorrow. He arrives tomorrow evening in Paris, and his day begins on the 10th with a ceremonial welcome in the morning. He then goes on to a round table. He has two round tables, back-to-back round tables. One is with French CEOs with infrastructure as a theme. And the second round table is with French CEOs with defense technology as a theme. Because both, of course, on infrastructure, as you know, it's something which is a very high priority for the government, and we do believe a lot of French companies have expertise and capabilities to contribute. In the case of defense, for us, our relationship with France traditionally has had defense, space, and nuclear as three important facets of that relationship. French companies are very capable, very experienced in the defense side, and we hope that the round table with French defense companies would lead to their taking interest in Make in India investments in India in the defense side. After these two roundtables, the Prime Minister goes to UNESCO. He will be speaking in UNESCO. And then he goes on to a lunch which is hosted for him by the President of the National Assembly, who's like the French speaker. Then in the afternoon, he has his talks with President Hollande. It begins with a tete-a-tete and then goes on to delegation-level talks. And the Prime Minister and the French President would together receive a report of the India-France CEOs Forum, which is actually meeting today, which would be deliberating and submitting a set of recommendations. There will be some agreements which would be signed. Those details will, of course, only be known closer to time. And then Prime Minister and the President would take a boat ride on the Seine. So it's a sort of nav pe charcha situation. And then there is a banquet which the President would be hosting for the Prime Minister. So that takes us through the 10th. On the 11th, which is a Sunday, the Prime Minister would be traveling to Toulouse, where he will tour the Airbus facility. Again, many of you would be aware that Airbus is a company which has been working with different Indian companies. So we see it as a partner for technology transfer and for investments. So that is very much a thought as we put this program together. And then he goes to CNES, which is the French space company. And he has a meeting with the local government. It's like the way visiting heads of governments visit states in India. Then he goes on to a place called Lille, from where he would be driving to a World War I memorial, for a World War I memorial where we would be the purpose of the visit is really to bring out the role of Indian soldiers during World War I. About 10,000 soldiers gave up their lives in World War I in France. So this is obviously an occasion which is important to note the Indian contribution. This is a subject on which there has been a very good exhibition. Some of you may have seen at the Manekshaw Center recently. Raksha Mantri and Videsh Mantri both hosted the diplomatic community to introduce them and show them that exhibition. Then from there he returns to Paris. There is a community reception, and the community reception would actually be shown outside France to French possessions where Indians reside. And then he has a meeting with former President Sarkozy. On the 12th, the Prime Minister leaves for, sorry, I got the dates mixed up. 12th is the Sunday. He leaves for Hanover. And in Hanover, almost soon after his arrival, he gets into meetings with German business leaders. The reason Hanover has been picked as the destination is we are the partner country for the Hanover Messe, the Hanover Fair this year. We have a very, very big presence of Indian companies there. I think the space we have taken is 5,000 meters. There's a central pavilion of 1,200 meters. There are almost 400 Indian companies who would be displaying their products. I think we expect somewhere in the range of 100 to 120 Indian CEOs who will be there. And the last time I got the numbers from Germany, there'll be close to about 3,000 German business delegates who would be attending. The fair authorities told me when I was there that the industry interest in coming to Hanover this year was exceptionally strong. There is clearly a lot of enthusiasm for Make in India and for the investment possibilities in India. So the Prime Minister does these business meetings in the morning, in the early afternoon. Then he goes on to the City Hall and unveils thereafter a bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Hanover. And the opening ceremony of the Hanover Fair is in the evening. Chancellor Angela Merkel would be there for the opening ceremony, and she will thereafter host a working dinner for the Prime Minister in Hanover. The next morning, there's a joint inauguration by Prime Minister and Chancellor Merkel of the India Pavilion. So the first day there is a inauguration of the entire fair, at which Prime Minister would be present. The second day it's a specific inauguration of the India Pavilion, and the two leaders actually walk about the central pavilion, and then they go on to inaugurate and address an India-Germany business summit. After that, the Prime Minister would be leaving for Berlin. Arriving in Berlin, he visits the Siemens Technical Academy, which is very well known as a leader in vocational education. Then he has a meeting with the Vice Chancellor of Gabriel of Germany, who is also the Minister of Economics and Energy. And then he has a community reception in the evening. On the 14th, the Prime Minister has a call on by the Federal Foreign Minister, Mr. Steinmeier. Then there is a ceremonial welcome by Chancellor Merkel at the Federal Chancellery. This is followed by a working lunch that she will host for him. They have their talks over working lunch. There will be formal statements after that. And then before departing for Ottawa, the Prime Minister would be touring the German railway station, which also is a very unique, it's a sort of model railway station in Europe. And that's again reflective of the Prime Minister's interest in railway modernization. So with that, he leaves for Ottawa, and I will then hand over the Ottawa part of the program to my colleague, Mr. Swaminathan.
Thank you, Foreign Secretary. As Foreign Secretary said, Canada also will be one of the G77 countries that the Prime Minister will be visiting. One of the G7 countries that the Prime Minister will be visiting. The visit to Canada is at the invitation of the Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I would say the PM's visit is of great significance because it's a first standalone prime ministerial visit to Canada after 40 years. The last standalone prime minister visit was in 1973, so it is taking place after 42 years. I would also say that bilaterally, the intensity of engagement has been very high since July 2004. For instance, the Canadian Foreign Minister, the Canadian Trade Minister, and also the Canadian Immigration Minister, they visited since July 2004. And also the premiers of British Columbia as well as Saskatchewan, they also visited India. In fact, if you see, we regard Canada as an important partner in terms of fulfilling our own developmental objectives through investment, trade, and technology. Canada, as you know, is the 11th largest economy, and also if you have to see in terms of the assets, their top 5 pension funds alone control nearly $700 billion assets, so there is great investment potential. Canada also is an energy superpower, and it is home to some of the best universities and research institutes. And of course, you also know that Canada has a very vibrant Indian origin community of 1.2 million. During the visit, Prime Minister will be traveling to Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, and he would have extensive interaction with both the political and business leadership. He would also have interaction with other opinion leaders from the Canadian polity and society. Also, given the people-to-people contact is a very important component of our bilateral relationship, PM is also scheduled to have extensive interaction with the Indian diaspora, both in Toronto and in Vancouver. In terms of the details of the program, PM should be reaching, as Foreign Secretary said, on the 14th evening, Ottawa. And 15th morning, there will be a ceremonial welcome. And PM will be calling on the Canadian Governor General, David Johnston, Governor General. He will also be meeting with PM Harper. And thereafter, there will be a working lunch. Once that part is over, PM will be moving to Toronto. In Toronto that evening, there will be a diaspora event, and preceding the diaspora event, there will also be a reception that will be hosted by the Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And 16th morning, that is next day morning, again in Toronto, there will be a pension fund meeting and followed by certain business level meetings as well. PM also will be visiting the Air India Memorial in Toronto, and thereafter, Prime Minister will be flying to Vancouver. In Vancouver, there will be programs in terms of visit to the Lakshmi Narayan Temple, where PM will be interacting with the Indian community, and also to visit to a Gurudwara, where again there will be an interaction with the Indian community. Thereafter, Prime Minister Harper will be hosting a state dinner for our Prime Minister, and that evening, Prime Minister flies back to India. I would say the overall objectives that we want to achieve during the visit would be to elevate, diversify, and deepen our engagement across a whole range of fields. I would also say impart new vigor through concrete steps and also establish linkages in terms of key areas, particularly energy, trade and investment cooperation, collaboration in skills development, education, science and technology, as well as space. Also strengthen linkages in the field of security cooperation, including counterterrorism and emerging areas of non-traditional security, including cyber threat. Thank you.
Could I just one correction and a few additional remarks. The correction was I said 5,000 square meters for the Hanover space. It's actually 7,000 square meters. I was just going to give you the focus at the end of the program, but I kind of handed it over prematurely to my colleagues. So I think in the case of Germany, in the case of France, as I said, our traditional relationship has focused on this trio of defense, nuclear, and space, and obviously those will continue to be very much at the heart of the discussions that we're going to have. In addition to that, both with France and Germany will be looking at smart cities, at railways, and vocational education. These are the contemporary themes. These are very high in the agenda of the government. The French, we're also going to be discussing with the French tourism, because they've really been among the most successful marketers of tourism. Where Germany is concerned, the focus will be on manufacturing. Germany is regarded as the best manufacturer in the world, and in fact, Hanover Fair should provide us the opportunity to really matchmake Indian companies with German companies. And again, the Germans are regarded as having the best skill program in the world, which is part of the reason the Prime Minister would be visiting the Siemens Academy. And the third big element of the German program is that their dominant position in renewables, particularly in solar energy. That is something we'll be looking at. So those will be the broad themes. Thank you.
You are aware of the ground rules. There are a large number of people, so we will take only one question per person. You've always abided by that, and I request you to abide by that today too. We have about 15 minutes or so for the question-answer session, and let's start with country-wise. So France, if you raise your hands, and I will know who is asking. Right. Yes. Just a minute, he'll bring the mic.
Secretary, my question is relating to France. As the Prime Minister is visiting France, France is using almost about 75 to 80% of the energy, nuclear energy, is being used in the civil nuclear area. And they almost have about 59 reactors there. Now, what are your expectations so far as this sector is concerned? Because India is also now interested in using the nuclear energy in a civil way. So what are expectations, and what kind of talks are going to be held in France so far as this sector is concerned?
Okay. If there are more France questions, if I can get 4 or 5 questions, it will probably be easier for me to answer.
Yeah, can you give the mic, please? Nas, yeah.
We just wanted to know whether we could expect some progress in the negotiations on the Rafale deal during Prime Minister Modi's visit.
Maha?
Sir, is the Prime Minister likely to take a strong stand at the CEO's forum on defense, especially with Dassault, as far as their conditions on Rafale are concerned?
Zaka?
Foreign Secretary, one of the agreements with France, we're told, is reportedly the exchange of radar information in the Indian Ocean region and littoral states. Can you elaborate a little more on that and the need for such an agreement? Thank you.
We'll take one more question on France and then start. Yeah, Huma?
Sir, are there any Indian CEOs accompanying the Prime Minister, and if yes, who?
Yeah. Yes, one more. Okay, last, there.
The question is the fighter aircraft Rafale. Is the Modi, Prime Minister Modi is accompanying the defense?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good. I have 3 Rafale questions, 1 nuclear question, 1 CEO question, and 1 Indian Ocean question. Nuclear question. we've been discussing with all our major nuclear partners how to take the broader civil nuclear energy initiative forward. And France is among the earliest and most important of our partners, which took a lot of initiative, gave us a lot of support at a time when the civil nuclear initiative was still in its early stages. We have an agreement with France for Arriva, the French company, to build reactors at Jaitapur. Now, as with many other partners, we are still engaged in a stage where we move from a general political level, I would say, broad brush understanding into a detailed techno-commercial situation. There are a number of steps. It's not unique to France. Part of it is to sit down and discuss the viability of their offer. Part of it is involved in dealing up with leftover issues such as liability, etc. We don't have any major concerns on the latter score with France, though we, obviously after January we've been updating one by one our various partners on this issue. I don't think we have as yet sat down in detail with France, though French companies did participate in an nuclear insurance pool symposium that we did in India. My answer to you, in a sense, is the process of the realization of the civil nuclear energy initiative would unfold. It's whether the Prime Minister's visit sees it express, it provides an opportunity to express itself in some sharp form. That is very difficult for me to share with you at this stage. In terms of Rafale, my understanding is that there are discussions underway between the French company, our Ministry of Defense, with the HAL, which is involved in this. These are ongoing discussions. It's not. Normally. These are very technical, detailed discussions. We don't mix up, leadership level visits with deep details of ongoing defense contracts. That's on a different track. A leadership visit usually looks at big picture issues, even in the security field. In terms of Indian CEOs who are accompanying the Prime Minister, well, there will be in each of the destinations there would be Indian CEOs, because in France there will be a CEO forum. And it will be a structured forum. There will be CEOs there. They will prepare a report. They will submit a report. In the case of Germany, there will be a very large number of Indian CEOs. I think 120 was the figure I gave you. There will be a number of other business delegates. There will be opportunities where they will interact with the German counterparts. Maybe they will also interact with the two leaders, Chancellor Merkel and Prime Minister. But there won't be a structured India-Germany CEO forum itself. I think in the case of Canada,
It's a business forum.
in the case of Canada, there'll be a business forum as well. Finally, the Indian Ocean question. We cooperate with a number of countries in the Indian Ocean. I read that report as well. I am not sure, looking at the possibilities, the possible outcomes in front of me, many of which are still being looked at. It's not that there's going to be any specific outcome in that regard, but France is a military power which has operated for many years in the Indian Ocean region. We see them as a security partner of some value, and we work very closely with the French.
Germany? Yes. Yeah. Ashish?
Sir,
Yeah.
Sir, this side.
Yeah.
So Germany में क्या प्राइम मिनिस्टर प्राइम मिनिस्टर की जो बातचीत होनी है उसमें गंगा क्लीनिंग को लेकर के राइन रिवर के मॉडल की बात वो आपने बताया नहीं, अगर ऐसा है तो प्लीज बता दें।
सर, मधुरेंद्र दिस साइड फ्रॉम न्यूज नेशन। पीएम के साथ भीड़ में 6 कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर और 3 चीफ मिनिस्टर्स भी जा रहे हैं। क्या एजेंडा दरअसल उनका रहेगा, चीफ मिनिस्टर्स का, अगर बताना चाहते?
ठीक।
संदीप सुनवलकर फ्रॉम इंडिया टीवी। सर, इस विजिट में प्राइम मिनिस्टर बर्लिन में स्टेशन पे जा रहे हैं, रेलवे स्टेशन पे, तो पर्पस उसका क्या हो, किस तरह वो विजिट हो?
ठीक है। Anyone else on Germany? Okay. You ask. Yes, these three on Germany.
Okay. I didn't mention Ganga cleaning only not because it was unimportant or was not happening, but simply because it is, it wasn't in my short list of focus items, but it is very much part of our agenda with Germany. In fact, the Germans have already been active, and in the discussions which the Prime Minister would be having in Germany, how to get the German government and German companies more deeply involved in Ganga rejuvenation will be very much a theme. In terms of who's going with the Prime Minister, to the best of my recollection, it will be one minister only who will be at the Hanover Fed. And the third question, railways. Well, you see, railways is an issue which is of deep interest to the government. It is of deep interest to the government because I once recall Prime Minister mentioning to a foreign dignitary that if you look at the size of the railways, and the employment of the railways, the size of the railways, the amount of capital and technology which would be required to modernize the railways, it's almost the size of a country. So if you look at, and if you can modernize Indian railways, it has a very great multiplier effect on the entire Indian economy. So when I think part of his interest in railways, and we'll be discussing railways with the French also, is to look at the entire chain. We are discussing with many countries station development, because that's that's where the railway journey begins. So from station development to speed raising to semi-high speed, high speed, to more efficient movements of good train. So I think there's a whole chain out here, and it is something which obviously is close to his heart. He feels strongly about it. He's taking a lot of interest. So I think that's broadly the reason why we have that visit to the railway station.
Okay, Canada now. Yes, Manish. Ranjit.
सर, प्राइम मिनिस्टर टोरंटो में 15 को जब वो रिको कॉलेजियम में एड्रेस करेंगे, आपको नहीं लगता कि उससे मेडिसन स्क्वायर में जो एड्रेस हुआ था उससे कंपैरिजन होगा, और इंडिया को क्या बेनिफिट होगा इससे?
पूरे 2-3 जो भी है. या मनीष, सॉरी, रंजीत. या
India has already entered into a nuclear cooperation agreement with Canada. So would there be any agreement relating to supply of nuclear fuel during Prime Minister Modi's visit?
Okay. Yes. Suchetna?
Hi, sir. My question is regarding BIPA, for which the government has been working to renegotiate BIPA with several countries. As the Prime Minister visits Germany, France and Canada, is a discussion on BIPA renegotiation, re-signing on the platter?
Sinjay?
So mine is slightly different.
Is it on Canada?
To Canada. No.
No, we will deal with it later on.
Huh?
We'll deal with it after the Canada. Let's go one by one. Yes, the last question there. Yes. Canada?
प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी टोरंटो जाएंगे और कनाडा विजिट पे जाएंगे, और वेरी हार्डलाइनर सिख्स आर लिव्ड देयर. तो मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ, ब्लैकलिस्ट सिखों के बारे में कोई बात होगी, क्योंकि ये मामला उठाया गया था और नरेंद्र मोदी ने कहा था कि जब मैं सत्ता में आऊंगा तो जरूर इस बारे में बात होगी.
Yeah, Ms. Venkat Narayan, and then we'll end there.
One tends to bump into a lot of Indian taxi drivers in the streets of Vancouver and other places. They're actually medical doctors, and they end up driving taxis in Canada because the Canadian government does not recognize the Indian degrees. This has been going on for a long time. Is there any possibility of this being taken up with the Canadians during the PM's visit? Thanks.
Okay.
The first was in terms of the diaspora event and what is the purpose of having that event. You know, as I mentioned, that Canada has a 1.2 million strong, vibrant Indian community. And it is also one of the important part in terms of our own bilateral engagement with Canada. And therefore, the Prime Minister will be interacting with the Indian community. And one opportunity will be in Toronto, where, as you mentioned, that it will be in Ricoh Coliseum, where there will be an opportunity for the Prime Minister to meet with a large cross-section of the Indian diaspora. There was a mention about, nuclear cooperation. You may remember that Canada is one of the old countries with which we started our civil nuclear cooperation. It was 1950s. And one of the other things which is common between us and Canada is that both of us follow what is called PHWR, that is pressurized heavy water reactor technology. Separately, Canada also, as you know, is the second largest uranium producer in the world. In fact, it produces 16% of world uranium reserves in Canada. And we have, of course, concluded our nuclear cooperation agreement with Canada in 2010 and did the administrative arrangements by 2013. And it will be the effort of both the governments to realize the potential of these agreements. And that is what will happen. It's a work in progress. It will continue during the visit as well. There was a mention about BIPA. See, BIPA, as you know, is discussions that we are having with many countries. And as such, I would say that it is not in focus in terms of the visit of the Prime Minister this time. But then certainly, Canada is also one of the countries with whom we are engaged with in terms of the BIPA negotiations. There was a thing about, yes, Sikh. I would say that there are fringe elements in every society, I would say. And we also have mechanisms to deal with Canada in terms of radicalization of societies at a larger level. We also have an institutionalized security dialogue with Canada. And also we have a joint working group on counterterrorism. And so we have many instruments through which we engage with Canada. And in terms of, there was a mention about the medical degrees and whether there is going to be a recognition. So what I would say is we have an ongoing dialogue with Canada in the field of education, and equivalence of technical degrees of each other is one of the points in terms of our own discussion, and we will continue these discussions. Thank you.
We have just about 2 minutes, so anybody else on Yemen or anything else? Yeah, just 1 minute. Yeah, Sinjoy?
Sir, your junior minister has called journalists prostitutes. Has this ever happened before? And do you have anything to say on it?
No.
Yeah, Rajiv?
Sir, has it ever happened before, sir? And what is going to happen?
Yeah, Rajiv?
Thank you, Akbar. This is your last briefing on Indian soil, and I assure you that you are leaving giant shoes to fill in. My question to Dr. Jaishankar is on Maldives. The situation in Maldives is back to 2012. MDP says that it feels like a forsaken child. They say that when the Prime Minister who visited Sri Lanka last month, he interacted with the opposition. But here in Maldives, opposition is being neglected. The question is, what is your view on the Maldivian situation, what India is doing? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. No, very quickly, on Maldives, I think Akbar has indicated earlier that we are monitoring the developments in Maldives, and that continues to remain the position.
Last question, Suhasini?
Foreign Secretary, in about an hour, 11 Indians are going to return by special plane from Pakistan. I just wanted to know if the government had at any level had any direct contact. Have the Prime Ministers exchanged messages over this? What is your reaction to the Pakistani gesture of not just bringing them from Yemen, but also flying them back by special plane?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think our reaction to the gesture is very positive. It's a very, very good gesture. It's a very generous gesture. They've taken great trouble to do something, and we need to appreciate that. I would also add that the Yemen situation, it's very interesting that in adversity, actually everybody's best side has come forward. You find different countries actually helping out people irrespective of nationality. In our own case, we have actually helped more than 400 people from 32 countries. 409, I think, is the number which I had last, from 32 countries to be evacuated from Yemen, which includes it includes some Pakistanis, it includes other SAARC neighbors, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans, Nepalis, and a number of other countries. So I think we approach this whole issue as an opportunity to really cooperate with each other. Often people take that as a sort of statement, I would say almost as a slogan or as a posturing. But the reality is difficult situations in international relations does call for countries to work with each other. This, what will be happening soon is a very good example of that.
Thank you very much. With that, we come to the end of this interaction. Thank you.